and welcome to another segment of EAC-GIZ Insights, where we bring to you experts to discuss different issues and topics in the various areas of cooperation between the East African Community and the German Agency for International Cooperation. There are 8 areas of cooperation between EAC and GIZ, and this segment will focus on customs and trade. With us today, we have Mr. Marvin Nuwagaba, who is a senior trade policy expert at GIZ in Arusha. But before we proceed, we would like to invite you to ask questions, drop us your comments under the hashtag EAC-GIZ Insights, and our team of experts will get back to you. Moving forward, hi Marvin, how are you? It's fantastic to have you here with us today. Thank you for making the time.
Good afternoon, Ayman, and I'm glad to be here.
Great, good stuff. Okay, just to dive in, we would like you to give us an overview of customs and trade. What does it entail? Just so our viewers can have an idea of the sector.
Okay, thank you, Ayman. Customs and trade is basically concerned with implementation of the 2 pillars of integration, namely the customs union, which came into force in 2005, as well as the common market, which came into force in 2010. And of course, this implementation is facilitated and guided by the respective protocols, so the customs union protocol, as well as the common market protocol. Maybe starting with a bit of insight on the customs union. This is mostly concerned with the movement of goods within the EAC and the removal of tariffs on selected products and services that originate within the community, so-called rules of origin. But it also concerns the harmonization and simplification of customs processes, which I'll talk about in a bit. One of the milestones under the customs union was adoption and implementation of the single customs territory, which involves the interconnectedness and sharing of information between customs agencies. Now, this has been made possible through the digitization and digitalization of various customs processes under the respective initiatives. For instance, the electronic single window allows for a single user interface between the respective customs agencies and stakeholders and people trying to move their goods from A to B. The exchange of information allows real-time exchange of information 2 ways, both from the private sector as well as responses from the customs offices. So for instance, if I want to have a consignment shipped from Dar es Salaam, I can apply online. This is called a single declaration. And under this online application, I can already receive a response from, let's say, the customs officers at the port of Dar es Salaam, which is then shared mainland with all the agencies, so that I do not have to come up with different documents for the same consignment. Now, obviously, this has led to a reduction of time. There has also been a reduction of cost, but obviously there is also the reduction of documents. As I mentioned earlier, you only need a single declaration form to move your goods, and you don't need to have multiple documents or multiple processes. Under the common market, this came into force in 2010, and it's basically concerned with the 5 freedoms, which is the free movement of goods, services, labor, persons, and capital, as well as the 2 rights, which is the right to establishment and the right to residence. However, the common market is guided by the principles of equal and non-discrimination of nationals, as well as transparency and sharing of information. One of the highlights under the common market has been the progressive liberalization of services under the respective modes of supply in the 7 sectors, which are financial, transport, communication, tourism, business, education, and distribution. Another highlight has been under professional services, where partner states adopted and finalized negotiations for the mutual recognition, qualifications, and certifications. So this means that there is no undue burdensome process, or you do not need to repeat training and other certification requirements as a professional. So as an accountant, your certification in Uganda or wherever it is that you're from is recognized by another partner state, and you can just move and supply your service. Maybe just quickly, other sectoral milestones include, for instance, under ICT, we have the One Network area, which has reduced roaming charges, but this is also being implemented under the Northern Corridor, so Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda. And then, of course, you have preferential rates for tourism. So as an East African citizen, you get preferential treatment whenever you want to go to a national park or any other public establishment.
Interesting. You've given us some highlights on customs and trade, but can you also tell us on the side of GIZ what interventions have been made in the customs union or under the common market?
Sure. One of the challenges, for instance, if I were to take the case of the common market, one of the challenges of implementation of trade liberalization has been domestication of the agreed commitments at the regional level. So in principle, if you agree to open up, you need to reform the respective regulations in those sectors. For instance, in tourism, that then allows the respective services to move. So in this regard, GIZ supported sector studies, which identified restrictions and barriers in three sectors: business services, tourism, and ICT. And in addition to this, we are supporting the EAC Secretariat as well as the partner states in development of a mechanism which will remove these restrictions to then fast track and facilitate the free movement of services and the services operators.
Thinking about how the private sector is the engine for commercial activity, and we understand that COVID-19 has presented some serious challenges to the private sector. What is going to be the role of GIZ in helping the private sector in facilitating the EAC-GIZ recovery plans and help the private sector emerge on the other side post-COVID and cope with the challenges that they are facing?
Okay. It's important to understand that one of the guiding principles of the SIMPED project, as well as ESC, which is enshrined in the treaty, is that regional integration has to be market-driven and people-centered. We are aware that the impact of COVID has been cross-sectoral to the private sector, which has led to revenue, job losses, and uncertainty in business continuity and processes. And of course, if I take the case study of tourism, which has been one of the sectors that has been hardest hit, I can share some figures in the policy brief that was done by EABC, where there is an estimated loss of 5.4 billion, for instance, with potential 6.2 million international arrivals not being able to travel, as you're aware of the lockdown measures that most countries have established. But one of the ways that we can then, as a project, as well as a community, support the private sector, is then to develop, number one, recovery plans, sector-specific recovery plans. So currently, we will support the East African community, for instance, to develop a tourism recovery plan. Then we can also support the private sector on innovation and leveraging technologies. For instance, we will support the EABC to develop a business continuity toolkit. We will facilitate e-learning trainings. We have to then also support the private sector to develop positions on priority sectors, for instance, the approach in developing these recovery plans, and also facilitate the dialogue between private sector and the respective institutions and ministries.
Thank you so much, Marvin. Thank you so much for the insights, and thank you for your time. This brings us to the conclusion of our segment on customs and trade. If you would like to receive more updates about the EAC-GIZ corporations, follow us under the hashtag EAC-GIZ Insights. Ask questions, and our team of experts will be there to respond. My name is Ayman Ahmed Omar, and this is EAC-GIZ Insights. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.